As a YouTuber, I'm part of the Jordan Peterson universe. I got started doing YouTubes as a personal speaking challenge inspired by Jordan Peterson. Though I did do YouTubes back in 2009. They're in my silly and fun list. A lot of the young science-y people who are so excited by Jordan Peterson have gotten into the idea of the great books. Wonderful plans are evolved, reading all the great books, these 500 books, 100 books, all these things, read them in order so you learn about the old thing and you build it up and so on. Write about it, think about it. I think this is problematic, and I'm going to offer some advice. I'm sort of sorry to do that, but here's some advice. Now, why should you listen to my advice? Well, I never went to college or university. I took one philosophy course, and I got an A. The one A I ever got in my whole scholastic career. But I was very lucky. I knew or associated myself with mentors, you could say. So my uncle, who was a student of Leo Strauss, I spent a lot of time with him, and sometimes our conversations and interactions almost took a formal turn, where I would be reading something and we'd talk about it regularly every day and so on. And of course I had my relationship with my art teacher, which went on for a very, very long time. And then I was lucky enough to, or unlucky enough to be from a very artistic bohemian family. So I was exposed to a lot of music, I was exposed to a lot of painting. I didn't have much religious training. That came much later when I got married to a very religious woman and became a Catholic. I had encounters with other people that marked me very strongly. For instance, when I was quite young, after Kennedy was assassinated, at that time in New York there was a station called WBAI, big leftist station. I listened to it a lot as a little kid, and I absorbed their conspiracy theories, and I trotted out this theory at some point. There was a man there, a good friend of my parents, and he put me down right away, bang. And that did me an awful lot of good. I mean, I was shocked and sort of offended, but I thought about it, and I I said, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I'm listening to these people on the radio, and I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. It did me a lot of good. So there's a way in which education has to pass by other people. You can't just do it from books. You have to learn how to read, and you've got to learn how to think, and you've got to learn how to interact. The 70s and 80s, they started up these programs at the colleges like Yale and Princeton and so on, these advanced courses. And I knew a lot of these people who went there, and they were all top students, so they were in these things, and it was just shameful. I mean, in 1 year, they started out Plato, Aristotle, this one, that one, 1 week for everything. 1 week for Plato, a week for Aristotle. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And you come out of an experience like that in a very special state. It's like what they do with culture. Go to the museum. We're going to take the kids to the museum. So the kids all go to the museum. So what's the result of this thing? Reading all these books or going to the museum like that? Well, you do that and you've seen it. Seen that, done that, and it's over forever. It's very dangerous to be exposed to these things in the wrong kind of way, because then you have the idea that you've seen it and you've understood it and it's over. My main thing is painting. But it took me a long time to get into painting. There were painters that now, to me, are everything, that for a long time meant nothing. I had to discover them. So I'm going to suggest, not necessarily a definite plan, but a somewhat different approach to education. My own education happened in a chaotic way. I read this and that, and one thing led me to another thing, and I had big gaps, and other things happened, and maybe that's the only way it could really happen. Or anyway, that's how it happened to me. But if you want to do something organized, if you want to, you're already, in college or something, you're involved just in science, and you're cut off from what they call the humanities. Here's my suggestion. Don't have the idea of reading all these great books. Start out with something very, very simple. Read Genesis in the Bible. It's very short. and read, say, one of the Evangels. Read St. Mark or St. Matthew. Read St. Matthew. I mean, you know, what is it, 10 pages, 15 pages? Read it slowly and carefully, and don't just read that. Go to church. I mean, not to convert or anything, but go to a mass. Go to a Protestant service. Maybe talk to some people about just what the liturgy. Understand how the Mass works. That's already something, if you understand the Mass. Find out about certain other Bible stories, you know, Daniel in the lion's den, different famous Bible stories. You don't have to read the whole Bible necessarily. Just get a start on it. And then, so that's one thing. So not just read the Bible, but also have some experience of the thing. And then read the Apology of Socrates, Plato. Very short. Read just that. Think about that. And then if you want to read something else, read Aristotle's Politics. I mean, Aristotle's Politics is probably the most approachable and informative book, and it's very, very useful for today. Very useful. That'll give you right away a whole different perspective on things. So if you just do that, that's already a big start. But then, with the Bible and with those other things, I mean, so have some experience in church somehow, learning a little bit about the liturgy, and go look at some paintings. And when you see these weird paintings, find out what they are. And there's all these pictures, you know, all these paintings of Mary and the baby, and so, you know, you should, that's from St. Luke, if you can look at St. Luke, or, you know, the crucifixion pictures and other pictures that illustrate the Bible. But aside from that, if you're lucky enough to be near a museum, go to the museum, look at the paintings, and learn something about paintings. Going to museums now is terrible because it's just an awful experience to go to museums. You know, when I was young, it was a different thing. You walked in for free, no one was there, and you could just be with the paintings. But if you can, go discover some paintings. Go look. Find something that means something to you, and work your way into painting. I mean, it's a long thing. If you can find one painting that excites you somehow, that leads you on to something else, that's an important experience. And then there's music. Now, if you have no familiarity with classical music, I don't know, people are attracted to different things, but it seems to me that one way to start to get into classical music would be to listen to the first cello suite of Bach. And just listen to that, even the first part of it, and see where that takes you, or something else. I mean, some people find Ravel very appealing, or I don't know what. And then, of course, with Bach and a lot of other composers, it's related to liturgy. So there's masses and so on, and all this marvelous music, and it's so easy to access it now. So find something that speaks to you. And then there's literature, and you know, people talk about it just like it's fiction, but you know, Jordan Peterson makes it very clear that fiction isn't just fiction. It's, you know, these books are important. Read a book by Jane Austen. Read Moby Dick. Read some real wonderful literature, and read some poetry. Read a little Keats, read a little Shelley, even if it's just one poem, and try to see, you know, a little Blake. Try to see what it can do for you and where it might lead you. And just those little things, just that beginning, can maybe start some fires and can lead you on to other things. And you can't just do it like mathematics, you know, reading a bunch of stuff about some theoretical thing and then writing about it and showing you understand it. It's more complicated. And then I would say a very important step, and this is very, very important, because there's the idea that there's all these ideas and we can just go and understand them. But Leo Strauss makes it very clear that we can't. We are stuck in our ideas of today, and we don't realize it. So if you can read a few short Platonic dialogues, Aristotle's Politics, look at some paintings, listen to some music, get into it a little bit, and read Natural Right and History by Leo Strauss. Now it's a killer book, but it's fun to read. Leo Strauss is a terrific writer. I had to read it 3 times before I was beginning to understand it. And I'm sure everybody's has better brains than I do, so it'll probably work out. But it's a wonderful thing, and it's a wonderful guide, and it helps to orient you. Because we can't understand this older thought. There's barriers that we don't realize we have. But attack those barriers on all fronts, on the front of all the different arts, and realize that the experience is going to be surprising. And the experience itself will lead and show you where to go. And find good people to talk about these things with, because there's a lot to explore. And you don't need to read everything. You need to set a fire in your mind.